and that is President Trump
Yes.
meeting with Chairman Kim
Right.
at the DMZ, at the Demilitarized Zone in Korea, the border between North Korea and South Korea, which is probably the most armed and weaponized and secured border in the entire world. I haven't really given that a ton of thought, but I'm going to guess that's probably it. I mean, they literally have artillery cannons sitting on, across from each other, pointed at each other, and a lot of military folks there patrolling and things like that. Nobody gets across that border, right? I mean, that's one of the most highly secured areas in the whole world. Mm-hmm. And here comes President Trump marching right down to the DMZ, and he waited on the South Korean side. And then here comes Chairman Kim marching right to the DMZ. And, I found it so interesting to watch the video, and Chairman Kim has taken the time to learn some English that he could speak to President Trump. And he said it was good to see him again, and that he was surprised. He never thought he would see an American president at this spot. Mm-hmm. And, of course, President Trump also was surprised that, he's there to cross over, and they walked together into North Korea. Not very far, but it was a very symbolic moment for the cameras.
I wonder if that was the first time for Kim
to walk down to the DMZ like that. I bet you it was. I bet you it was, because he would not be necessarily safe just walking up to the line like that.
No. And so the former presidents Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton have both been to North Korea, but only after they left office. And several presidents, including Barack Obama, have been to the border, but have never crossed over it.
Yeah. Well, it was a huge historic moment. I mean, it just now that came out of, I think, all of these trade negotiations with China, and we've recently seen China take full responsibility for North Korea. I think we discussed that a couple of weeks ago, or either that or I might have just discussed it in my own head with myself a couple of weeks ago. But China kind of came out and said, that they have a historic friendship with North Korea, and essentially, in my view, took responsibility for what's going on the Korean Peninsula. So, I mean, a lot of these signals, it all involves the trade conflict with China, because China was using North Korea as a negotiating tool. Whenever we would try to kind of start to crack down on some of these issues with China in the past, the North Korean threat has really spiked up and sort of distracted us, and we thought, well, we got to deal with this Korean thing. We can't upset things in that area. We need China on our side, so we better not really crack down on them in terms of trade and what they're doing with their currency and intellectual property thefts, which I think are the biggest issue, is the theft of our innovation.
Do you think it's China telling him, hey, I think it's time to launch something?
Launch what, though?
Well, and some of his missiles that he says he's testing and things. Do you think China's...
Well, we'll see. I mean, let's wait and see.
Directing him what to do?
Yeah, I do. I think they have been in the past, but I think at this point they now can't.
Right.
Because I think they now own the problem in North Korea, which we've always known. I mean, it's not a secret that China has controlled North Korea. Now, the media may pretend like they're separate states, but where do you think North Korea got its missile technology from?
See, I didn't know this until you're telling us right now.
Well, because the media won't tell you this kind of stuff, and if you don't really look into it and you got to spend a lot of time looking into it, and then you got to have a little bit of bravery to challenge the prevailing narrative. So you've got to think, well, I see that on CNN and even Fox News. Everywhere I look, I see the same story, but I'm looking at the facts, and I'm going to make a different analysis of what this means, and I'm going to come up with my own thought process. I mean, that takes a lot of guts.
Sure.
I mean, because, everybody else is telling you you're wrong, but in fact, you may well be right. So it's a historic moment. I think it deserves to kind of stand on its own. President Trump ought to get some credit here. This was a major crisis before he came into office. This Korean Peninsula dispute has been, top of
ongoing forever.
Yeah, and it's top of the news before he got into office. Mm-hmm. And look, since he's been in office, we haven't had any missiles launched out over Japan. We haven't had any tests of long-range ballistic missiles. We've had some very short-range missiles fired, but nothing long-range, nothing like what was going on before President Trump came into office. And you can see, I don't think it's fake, you can see the relationship that he's developed with Chairman Kim. They obviously have a relationship. Now, I'm not saying Chairman Kim's a good guy. I really don't know him, and it does sound like he's done some horrible things to his people. But this I can tell you, that President Trump has got to find a way to negotiate with these world leaders, because we can't be going around the world and just taking out the world leaders that we don't like or we feel we can't get along with. the people that replace them are usually about 10 times worse,
That's
or the
true.
situation that replaces them. And we can look at something like Libya as an example of that. Yeah, we didn't like Gaddafi, but at least Gaddafi was kind of holding the state together and was somebody that we could have some degree of dealings with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's going on in Libya? It's a completely failed state with multiple parties fighting for control of the country, none of whom are particularly friendly to us. Some of whom include the Al-Qaeda, type Libyan rebels that exist there.
Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.